Hey Destination Nation fans, welcome back to the Destinations channel. I'm Sal Patera, and today we're going to talk about hurricane season. We're going to talk about booking during hurricane season. We're going to talk about what happens when you go to your port of call during hurricane season, and also the absolute worst, what happens if you get stuck in the middle of a hurricane while you're on a cruise ship. I'll be back to talk all about it right after this. Welcome back, guys, and thanks for staying through the intro. As always, if you're new to our channel, please make sure you click the subscribe button, click the little bell notification, that way YouTube will let you know every time we upload a brand new video. Also, new if you'd like to join the Destination Nation, hit the join button. It's $4.99 per month. It supports our channel, allows you discounts on your Carnival cruises, and a lot more discounted items through our group, the Destination Nation, as time goes on. Today, we're here to talk about hurricane season. Hurricane season is normally designated from the beginning of June until the end of November, with most hurricanes right in the middle. Now, booking your cruise during hurricane season can be a gamble. You're going to have lots of flexible travel plans, which we're going to talk about soon. But first of all, the very first thing you have to do if you're going to book during hurricane season, and by the way, you should have it during the other seasons as well, but typically during hurricane season, is buy travel insurance. Travel insurance is offered through most of the major cruise lines, and for you, I have a link in the description of this video where we've worked out a discount with insuremytrip.com. They have lots of great programs, and you can pick and choose which you want. You get a discount, and it also supports our channel. Now, booking your cruise during hurricane season can be good and bad. First of all, there's a lot of great itineraries out there, and the pricing for your cruise is typically a lot lower during hurricane season for obvious reasons. But as I said, you're going to want to make your plans fluid. When hurricanes are in the area, lots of things can happen. Your cruise could be canceled completely. Your cruise could be delayed a day or two from going out from its original embarkation port. And as your cruise ship is traveling out in general, you may have to switch ports, delay timing in your ports, and even may have a completely new itinerary altogether. So know going in that travel plans during hurricanes are always fluid. Okay, let's talk about arriving at your port. First of all, if you're driving to your port, you want to make sure that you park your car someplace safe that has enclosed walls. Funny story for me, I drive a Hummer. It's in mint condition. A few years back, we were in Port Canaveral going out, and we knew that there was going to be a hurricane in front of us on the way back. Well, when we returned back to Port Canaveral, the hurricane had already came through and literally destroyed most of the town. It was a major hurricane. I went back to the hotel where I had parked my Hummer, which had no walls and was right along the beach, and every exterior piece of metal on that Hummer needed to be replaced from all the wind and the sand blowing around. A tree branch went through part of it. I ended up driving it all the way back to Ohio, but believe me, the Ohio body shop had no idea what could have possibly happened to this car. Every piece of metal had to be replaced. So that's my first piece of advice to you, is park your car someplace safe that if a hurricane were to come through, hopefully you'll still have a car to come back to when you get off of your cruise. As before, we talked about flexibility with your plans. Remember, you are traveling during hurricane season, so you may be notified last minute by the cruise line that your cruise has been canceled. Or you may be notified that your cruise may be delayed a few days if the last voyage had a hurricane to deal with, and they may be stuck out at sea an extra few days. So before you head to the port, always double check your communications from the cruise line. Make sure nothing has changed on your end so you don't get to a port and have no cruise ship there. Next, let's talk about what happens once you're on the cruise ship and we find out that there's going to be a major hurricane in the area. All of the major cruise lines now have a technologically advanced operations center. That operations center is constantly monitoring the seas for not only just hurricanes, but any type of weather conditions that could possibly pose a risk to your cruise ship. And from there, they can literally control everything on the cruise ship. You name it, they could even drive that ship right from the operations center on land. God forbid something happened to the crew and you needed to get home. Now, that operations center is in constant communications with the captain and bridge crew on board the cruise ship. And if there is any way to make it so that your cruise ship can avoid those hurricanes, they will. And unfortunately, this may mean that your port times may change, or you may skip ports or have no ports at all. Remember, always remember that you're the one who chose to book a cruise during hurricane season, and the plans are always fluid. You can be out at sea and have a hurricane in the area and be 25 miles away from it, and where you're at, it's sunny and blue skies, 100 degrees and perfect weather. And just because you can't see the bad weather that might be right next to you, know that the cruise ship can, and they're doing their very best to avoid it for you. But the takeaway from this is things can and often do change on cruises during hurricane season. Okay, next we're going to talk about what to expect if you're on board your cruise ship and you're stuck in a place where you have no choice but to endure a hurricane that goes right over top of you. I have some experience with this. Several years ago, there was a major hurricane going through New Orleans, and we were traveling out of New Orleans. And if you've gone through New Orleans on a cruise ship, you know that you have to travel down the Mississippi River about 5 hours to get to the Gulf of Mexico on the way out, and vice versa. On the way in, you've got to travel up the Mississippi River to get back into port. Well, we left port, everything was normal. We had several Mexican destinations, and the captain came on and said, unfortunately, there is bad news. There is a hurricane coming up behind us, but the good news is that we should have plenty of time to get back to New Orleans, and the hurricane would hit the next day. Everything was great. We went through the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, and we get about halfway through, and the captain comes on board, and he says,
well, folks, we have bad news. In preparation for the storm, the Mississippi River has closed to all marine traffic.
So now we are stuck in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and the storm is now at the only place, the opening of the Gulf of Mexico, the only place we could possibly retreat to get out. May I say we had 4 extra days at sea where the hurricane went directly over top of us. Even the eye of the storm went over top of us. It was scary. But in my opinion, it was also a lot of fun. We didn't know if we were going to live or die, but I'm weird that way, I guess. Me and my wife, we thought it was great. So now we're going to talk about some of the things that the cruise is going to do to make your stay on board during that event as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're going to expel the stabilizers. Ships have stabilizers. They're kind of like wings that extend out the sides of the ships, so that as the water passes over them, it can try to make the seas a little less rough. Now, obviously, during a hurricane, stabilizers aren't going to do it. You're not going to have calm seas no matter what you do. I remember on the one we were on, when you were looking out the window, the horizon was at the bottom of the window 1 second and at the very top of the floor-to-ceiling window the next second. Stabilizers will help a little bit, but be prepared for very rocky seas. The next thing they're going to do is they are going to chain lock doors, all of the exterior doors to the cruise ship, including locking the cabin doors if you have a balcony stateroom. There is no access to outdoors on the cruise ship for obvious reasons. It's windy, winds can be blowing well over 100 miles an hour, and the waves are unbelievably high. So if anybody were to fall overboard, the odds of you being found are very, very slim. So they're going to lock all the doors exterior to the cruise ship. The next thing that's probably going to happen is you're going to hear the captain come across the loudspeaker. I know cruise lines do get a rap for captains not being very forward and talking about the information when things can go wrong. In this case, it's going to be just the opposite. The captain is going to brief you of exactly the weather conditions, the stability of the ship, where you are, and what the likelihood of the storm passing in a timely manner is. Another thing that they do on a lot of cruise ships is open up the internet so that it's free for everybody to use, as well as the phone system so it's free for everybody to use, so that you can call home, let people know that you're safe, make new airline reservations if the ship is expected late back into port. Now, I will warn you, the second that announcement is made, the internet becomes dead slow and the phone system becomes almost non-usable. So I'm here to tell you, set an alarm for 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when most people will be asleep, and that'll be the time for you to call home. I'm quite sure the people at home aren't going to mind you calling it a late hour to let them know that you're okay.
Really, I don't know why it is that all of us are so committed to the sea. I think it's because, in addition to the fact that the sea changes, and the light changes, and ships change, it's because we all came from the sea. And it is an interesting biological fact that all of us have in our veins the exact same percentage of salt in our blood that exists in the ocean.
Going back to movement, again, the ship is going to be very, very wavy. They're not going to put fine china out because just about anything you set down, they're going to want you to hold while you're eating because it will go flying off the tables right away. And the reason I tell you this is because seasickness will become a thing for many passengers. The good news is that the cruise line does keep a supply of Dramamine, and at least on the cruise I was on and several other cruises that got caught in hurricanes that friends of mine have been on, they do pass the seasickness medication out regularly and at no charge. The other thing passengers worry about is food. We were on board for 4 extra days, and people were wondering, are we going to run out of food? Well, I'm here to tell you that cruise lines carry about a week of food backup, so the odds of you running out of food are very small. They've had issues in the past where they have run out of food, and they've learned from those mistakes, and they've keep an extra supply of food on. And then they can also have, providing the storm is at a low point, they can have additional food flown on board by helicopter as well. But it's usually not necessary because the cruise line does keep a large supply of food, enough to last for about a week extra at sea. Also, talking about large waves and things flying off of tables, a lot of cruise lines are going to switch to plasticware. So you're not going to have those fine china and silverware and glass cups. A lot of them will switch to plasticware. That way, if something does fall off the table, it's not going to break or cause any major damage. And they may remove actual furniture and glass tables and photos that are on the walls and things of that nature and put them underneath the ship in the crew area where they can be stored in a way where there won't be any damage to them from the rockiness of the ship. And then lastly, and I haven't really heard of this happening during hurricanes, but it could happen, is you could be confined to your cabin. If things become dangerous out in the open areas, it's possible that a cruise ship could ask you to please stay in your cabin until the worst is over. Again, I haven't seen that, but it is on several cruise lines' list of things that possibly could happen. And then you also want to prepare for possibly staying out at sea extra days. It's very possible. It happens to me. It happens all the time. If that hurricane is moving the same direction as you, or it's in your path and you can't get around it in time, it's very possible you may get extra days at sea. Now, the good side to this is you're going to get free time on a cruise ship, especially if the hurricane is in front of you in your path and not directly over top of you. And most VIFP and other loyalty programs will give you points for those days as well, even though you didn't pay for them. And then the last piece of information I'm going to give you to choose is that I typically don't buy my airline from the cruise line because, well, let's face it, it's cheaper. I get to pick my own air times. I can come in a couple days beforehand if I like. But I will tell you this. The one time I was stuck out at sea 4 days later, people were scrambling to call their airlines and try and get air information taken care of. It was almost impossible for most of them. That one time, for some reason, I did buy my air through the cruise line. And I was lucky enough that there was just an envelope in my cabin, had all of my information on it for my flights. We were even allowed to use the cruise ship in New Orleans as a hotel for a day or two if we wanted to. And Operations Center took care of that behind the scenes, all of my modes of transportation home. So if you're traveling during hurricane season and you're concerned, then I would definitely recommend possibly booking your airline through the cruise line. And that's it for today's video. Again, I hope you learned something here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the little bell notification, and consider hitting the join button and joining the Destination Nation. I promise you, it's worth it. Until next time, remember, happiness comes in waves.